The microwave I bought made me go insane. Written by RoseBlack2222. I know what you're probably thinking. A microwave? Really? Well, I'm here to tell you that this common household item has driven me to permanently check out. However, I think the one thing I can do before I expire is share how exactly it put me in this state of mind, or lack thereof, I should say. It all began only a week ago. I was shopping at a thrift store. I'm not that well off financially, so sometimes I had to shop there for things I need. And seeing as how the microwave I had for years broke, I was looking for a new one. I couldn't believe my luck when I saw an employee put it on a shelf. It looked brand new. It was silver with black buttons. Not a single scratch was on it. I picked it up and shook it. I didn't hear any weird rattling or anything like that. The only odd thing was that it didn't have a brand on it. I checked the price and saw that it was only $20. I couldn't believe my luck at the time, although I mistook it for good luck at the time. I made sure to clean it thoroughly after I brought it home. When I had done that, the only thing I had left to do was to test it out. The weirdness began with the first thing I heated up in that goddamn metal box. What I put in it was 2 bagel halves with a slice of cheddar each on them. Sometimes I prefer them a bit chewy. Anyway, I left my kitchen to get the mail. When I got back, I noticed something odd. I could smell mozzarella, which was strange, seeing as how I put cheddar on the bagel halves. I looked inside the microwave. Sure enough, there were now 2 melted mozzarella slices in place of cheddar slices. To make sure I hadn't mistakenly used the wrong kind of cheese, I checked my fridge. The only kind of cheese I saw in it was the cheddar slices I had used. Needless to say, I was confused. I wondered if someone had broken into my apartment when I was out and switched the cheddar bagel halves with mozzarella ones. A far-fetched explanation, I know, but it was the only one I could think of that was in the realm of possibility. And besides, people have done stranger things. Going with that explanation, I threw away the bagel halves, then heated up some new ones. This time, I made sure to stay in the kitchen to watch them. To my surprise, I saw the cheese go from yellow to white while in the microwave. I couldn't think of an explanation for this. That didn't mean I immediately thought that the cause was something even remotely supernatural. I noticed something else I hadn't before. The plate had changed. Originally, I used one that was white with a floral pattern, but the one I was holding was white with a leaf pattern. And when I looked into the sink, I saw a blue plate with a floral pattern, which was originally a blue plate with a leaf pattern. I had been too focused on the bagel halves the first time it happened to notice. I admit this wasn't a smart decision, given that I didn't know how the microwave turned the cheese from cheddar to mozzarella, but I was really hungry. It tasted exactly like mozzarella. Not only that, it tasted like good mozzarella. When I say good, I mean damn good. As I ate, I wondered if I should return the microwave. Sure, what it was doing was strange, but did it really warrant taking it back? It hadn't done anything to put me in immediate danger, after all. Now I wish I had. I wish that I never saw it, and that someone else bought it, making it their problem. Too late for that now though. Anyway, I decided to test something else in the microwave. It was a strawberry Pop-Tart. I was expecting it to change into another flavor of Pop-Tart. Perhaps chocolate. Maybe even cookie dough. Instead, I saw it change from a Pop-Tart into a toaster strudel. I never thought a breakfast pastry would render me speechless, but it did. I split it open to see a yellow cream come out. That meant it was Boston cream pie flavored. I tasted it just to be sure. Once I confirmed it, I began to consider different possibilities. What would happen if I put something else in there? What would it turn into? Would it turn into this? Or this? Maybe even this? My thoughts were along those lines. Eventually, I made a sort of game out of it. I would put things into the microwave, then guess what they would turn into. From what I could tell, the items put in there would change into things related to them. For example, I put a bag of steamable broccoli in it, which turned it into a bag of steamed carrots. Not being a big fan of carrots, I put them back into the microwave. I expected them to change back into steamed broccoli. Instead, I got steamed Brussels sprouts. Only 2 times, I was able to correctly guess what the items I put in there would turn into. In those instances, it was a bowl of saffron rice changing into brown rice, and a bowl of ratina pasta changing into bounty pasta. This game lasted throughout most of the week. I wondered what would happen if I put something living in there, but decided not to for obvious reasons. I made the decision not to return it, simply because I saw no reason to. Even if the items in there changed into something I didn't like, I could always put them in until they changed into something I did. Eventually, I realized something. None of the food I heated in the microwave had been meat, or had any meat in them. I tested what would happen if I did this, with a plate of spaghetti and meatballs. I guessed it would change into teriyaki noodles, because it technically related to spaghetti and meatballs, since both were types of noodles with meat. What came out, I didn't think was even remotely possible. The plate and spaghetti looked the same. The only thing that changed were the meatballs. They were covered in pink fur. I was weirded out enough, but what they did made me drop the plate. They started to vibrate. The plate shattered, making them shake harder. It was as if they were scared. I was racking my mind for possibilities of what I was seeing. I ended up settling on 2. The first was that the pieces had been swapped out with chunks of a living pig, meaning that somewhere at that point in time, there was a pig with meatballs in place of parts of its body. I ended up trying to confirm this by picking up one of them with my tongs. However, when I inspected it, I didn't notice any blood, or anything indicating it had been ripped from the animal it came from. It was covered in fur all round. That led me to believe my second theory, which was the microwave somehow revived the meatballs. My next thought was, can this microwave really revive the dead? I know the answer to that question should have been obvious, but I hadn't fully comprehended what I had just seen. And besides that, why didn't it work with the vegetables I heated in the microwave? Shouldn't the broccoli I heated up have turned into part of a broccoli plant? Or something along those lines? I theorized that perhaps it only worked on things that once had a consciousness. The only way to know for sure was to test it. Once I threw away the furry meatballs, I gathered various types of meat to test it with. What I had to use was a chicken wing, part of a hamburger, 2 strips of bacon, and some shrimp. If I had tested these items one at a time, I would have been able to avoid what happened next. At first, things happened exactly how I thought they would. The pieces of meat grew fur, corresponding with the animals they had come from, and the shrimp had clearly come back to life. In fact, they were a lot more active than the other pieces. My mind was racing with questions. What if someone's dead pet was put in the microwave? They'd be able to bring it back to life? Or what if some dead person's head was put in it? Would they come back to life with all their mental faculties in check? If they did, would it just be a matter of reviving dead body parts, then attaching the head to them to bring them back to life? Hell, what is the extent of this thing's revival powers anyway? Would it work on the head of a pharaoh from ancient Egypt? Suppose I took an urn that was thousands of years old, then microwaved its contents. Would a person sprout from those ashes? Humans weren't the only other animal I thought of testing the microwave on. The thought occurred to me that if I put some fossils in the microwave, I could potentially revive parts of animals that were around millions of years ago. What if we found a way to replicate the microwave's ability on a bigger scale? It would make things so much easier. I began considering where I should go to that would know what to do with such an odd discovery. A university? A branch of the government? As I was considering this, I heard hard, rapid banging. I turned towards the microwave to see the pieces jumping around, as if they were in a frenzy. They generated more force than I thought was possible, given their size. I saw that they were trying to scoot the microwave off the counter. I acted quickly, pushing some buttons and hitting start. I figured that this was just a minor thing to work out. I got my answer to what would happen if something that was living, or some things that were living, were affected by the microwave. Before, it had been tested on things that were dead. Now it was the opposite case. The pieces ended up gravitating towards each other. What happened next was that they began fusing together. Repulsive didn't even begin to describe the furry mass of meat I saw in the microwave. But things didn't end there. What I saw next nearly broke me. A silly thing to say regarding a simple microwave, I know. However, if you had been there, you would have no doubt felt the same way. What the mass of furry meat and shrimp turned into is hard to describe, even though the memory of it is burned into my mind. First, I saw what I could only describe as an eye. It certainly moved like one. It was shaped like a star, and it had colors that I never thought possible. They were somehow way too dark and way too vibrant at the same time. The eye's stare had a hypnotizing effect on me. However, what it did next snapped me out of it. Part of this creature broke out of the microwave. It was in a shape that I couldn't even begin to describe, but I'm going to anyway. To start, this thing had an insane amount of joints and claws, some like a lobster, and others were similar to a mantis. It moved like a tentacle. However, I don't know if that's the most accurate word for it, because it didn't look soft like one, and I could clearly hear the sound of joints popping as it moved around. My first instinct was to unplug the microwave. I didn't know if it would work. Thankfully, it seemed to, at least somewhat anyway. The thing began thrashing violently. I took this to mean that it had gotten stuck somehow. I didn't know if it was capable of emotion, or at least, emotions that we know of. If it was, the one it conveyed at that time was pure rage. It thrashed about, putting holes in my cabinets, counter, and wall. I would have left the house and never looked back, if it weren't for what I saw next. Let's call it limb, was growing longer, meaning this thing was still trying to push its way into our world. I quickly grabbed some lighter fluid I use for grilling and matches, both of which I kept above one of my sets of cabinets, then flung the door open. After that, I emptied the fluid inside of it, all over that creature, and dropped a lit match into it. I made sure to jump back. I looked back to see the microwave set ablaze. The thing that was burning made a sound that was so inhuman. It triggered the most primal fear instinct in my body. Fortunately, it only lasted a few moments. Then it was over. However, I had to be sure. That was my biggest mistake. I went over to it and peered inside. A thick layer of smoke blocked my vision. I thought it was over, until the same part of the creature sprang out of the microwave. I tried to avoid it, but I wasn't fast enough. It didn't cut or damage me, at least, not physically. All it did was touch my face, before retracting back to wherever it came from. I rejected its touch with every fiber of my being. It felt so wrong, like that thing was never meant to make contact with a human being. No matter how hard I scrub, or how deeply I cut, I still can't get rid of how its touch felt against my bare skin. Having heard all the noise coming from my apartment, my neighbors called the police and the fire department. They broke my door down to see me smashing that fucking microwave to pieces, until it wasn't so many that there was no way it could be put back together. I didn't have an explanation for it. They just slapped me with a fine, and I was told by my apartment manager that I had to move out. Not that it matters. I know it could have been used to benefit everyone, and that what I experienced with that creature only happened once. You may think that the chances of encountering something like that again are minimal at best. Thing is, we have no idea how many of those creatures are out there, or things like it. If we consider the size of the universe, the chances of encountering them go up significantly. And if you are thinking that all that had to happen was no living things going into the microwave, I have a simple retort to that. Humans make mistakes. That means there is a chance, no matter how small, that someone could slip up and make the same mistake I did. A chance I wasn't willing to risk, no matter how small it was. I don't know where the microwave originally came from, and to be honest, I don't care. All I know is that nobody will ever be able to use it again. It's a good thing I didn't see that creature in its entirety, or else I wouldn't be mentally sound enough to write all this out. But I can't go on. Every waking moment, I feel its touch on my face. I haven't slept since the incident. I know there is only one way out. When I finish posting this, I have to go take care of some things. Once I do, I think I'll head over to the lake. It's beautiful and peaceful, with a cliff overlooking everything. The rocks at the bottom should be able to help me get the job done. Before I go, let me leave you all with a warning. If you ever come across a microwave that does what the one I had did, or anything like that, smash it until there is nothing left, because the reward from it is not worth the risk.